not many people could tell you the importance of this scene in Deadly Premonition. I'm not even talking about the story implications or even the foreshadowing that follows. I mean how quotable and iconic this whole game is to thousands of people, and as a community how you can all turn to each other and say F.K. in the coffee. It's quite common that you see people focusing on what's only popular, what is seen as good in the eyes of the mainstream and what is seen as the new next best thing. But people do like to build communities and fully take on the strange and the weird. Games that are often seen as slated or quote unquote not a good game, or even seen as adding weird mechanics or even having a story which people are not quite ready for yet. These are called cult classic games or even cult films, from the likes of John Carpenter's The Thing to Sam Raimi's Evil Dead or even films like The Big Lebowski. But in the gaming side we see games like Ica or even Stubbs the Zombie, or even the horror gaming indie scene which splash out so many classics that many people have never heard of, like Stalker for example. All these have very loyal and passionate fans that just see the incredible side to all these relatively small or even failed games and films. Cult games though are defined very differently from cult films. Of course, as it's a totally different medium, therefore it speaks to the audience in a totally different way. But it doesn't stop them being defined in the same way that we often find cult movies defined. Transgression and censorship seem to be a big subject in cult culture. People use disturbing subjects and gore as a tool to try and create a cult film or even a cult classic, but fail in the process because it becomes a little bit too popular and people hear about what they're trying to create, therefore getting popular in the mainstream, therefore completely breaking the tide of what makes a cult classic, well, a cult classic. In the case of games like Hatred or even films like The Human Centipede, which completely missed the mark even though you can obviously see what they're trying to do. And when people think about cult classics, they usually think about small-time companies that people are not very aware of, but this isn't always the case. In the likes of Rockstar, which is one of the biggest companies in gaming history, Rockstar perfectly created a cult classic with Manhunt. A game that pushed the bar with its disturbing nature and its visceral level feeling of gore. But it's also because this game was banned in so many countries that it was quite difficult to get your hands on at one point in time, making only a select few feel like a community who was able to experience it and play it and see exactly what the fuss was all about for themselves. And it's because of that feeling that people feel like they really felt engaged with the series, and still to this day people demand to see more from Manhunt and Rockstar. But sometimes it doesn't have to be a snub movie or about something that's disgusting to people, but something that's relatively realistic. And that's what happens when you look at games like Spec Ops: The Line. When you look back in 2012 and if you was able to compare Spec Ops: The Line with anything like Call of Duty, it's easy to see why this game was shrugged off as another cover-based soldier shooter. But it's filled with something completely different. If you play through this war story, you very quickly learn that it's something way more important. The developers did a fantastic job making sure the players felt guilty and even unaware of what's actually happening and even the consequences of their own actions. And because of this, becomes a psychological journey for a man's mind as it degrades because of what happened through war and even what he's done and caused to the world. It's a very interesting story and I don't want to spoil anything, so if you haven't played this game and don't know anything about it, jump into it blind. You'll have a blast, trust me, it's totally worth your time. But sometimes these games don't have to have a message. It isn't about being overly violent or even artistic at any point, but instead is intended to make people connect as players and friends and just do something to pass the time. Many people remember staying up on late weekends and just talking to friends on Xbox Live Market and flicking backwards and forward through the Avatar stores, and well, if you imagine those times, it was very boring. Until December of 2010. Doritos Crash Course was a free Xbox arcade game that allowed you to go against your friends with time-based races, which was very much like Total Wipeout, which was very popular at the time. And because it was so easy to pick up and only required you to press the maximum of 3 buttons, it was available for everybody to just go and get on with it and be done with it before you even thought about it. And it allowed people to connect at the same time, being so engaged and having a blast screaming at the screen that your friend will never win. And you came back to it night after night just to prove who was better. And somehow it actually became one of the most downloaded games on Xbox Arcade, getting over 1.4 million downloads for a free cheap game which was made by Doritos. And if you ask anyone who was around during the Xbox Live Marketplace arcade boom, they could tell you about games like Harm's Way, or even small indie games like I Made a Game with Zombies in it, which was very easy to learn and quick to pick up, and you're able just to blast through it while you're sitting there talking to your friends, not even thinking about what's actually going on screen. And because of that, the indie Xbox Live Marketplace created so many cult classics that people will remember playing, and even to this day people speak of high regards. David Lynch is not for everyone. and could honestly be one of the fathers of the cult film genre. But one of the most important things he's ever created is possibly his series Twin Peaks. The series itself is amazing and just great to explore and uncover the weird wacky mysteries and every single quirky character that show offers to you. It's totally worth your time to take it in, and I endorse you to see it. And Sweary decided to grab that energy and throw everything he could at a disc and call it the Rainy Woods. I'm sorry, it's called Deadly Premonition. That's the old game. Whoa. Deadly Premonition from the go tells you exactly what you're in for with this adventure. Odd choices that make you fall in love with it and make you laugh at the screen in both confusion, but at the same time just acceptability of what you're seeing. Why is the music so loud? Why does York talk to himself so oftenly? And most importantly, why does that squirrel make a monkey noise at the beginning of the game? Can someone explain that? No? Okay, that's fine. We love it. The fans of this game know and appreciate every single quirk that creates this game's identity, for its outrageous and oddly comedic moments that really have no place to be where they are, to the music not even fitting the current situations of what characters are talking about, and that's why it stands out as a cult classic. It's able to stand on its own feet and have its own identity because people are just so attached to every single weird moment that Sweary put into this game, but at the same time somehow making the players feel 100% invested in the journey and making sure they actually feel included along with York. By York addressing himself and the audience with Zach makes you feel like he's actually talking to you as the audience. Talking about movies and his love of cult films often makes it feel like he's directly addressing the audience because he knows exactly what audience he was making the game for. Squirting out oddly peculiar facts that only cult film fans would know, and dates and times and even quotes from movies is something that fans like myself can generally relate with because movies is such a big interest, and having cult games and cult movies blend together perfectly makes this game stand out as its own game and really makes you feel invested and makes you feel like that York is also you as well. If you ever speak to a fan of this game, you'll know they show nothing but love for the game. They could quote every single strange bit of dialogue, and it's very similar to the movies like The Great Lebowski, which has so many quotable lines, or even The Room. You love it because how quotable and how insane the whole situation is, and because of that it seems to hold a legacy which is great in so many people's hearts, and clearly people have seen this love and passion, and that's why we're getting a sequel in the future, and I'm so excited to see what happens and see if they can hold up the legacy to the first game. But what if a game is meant to be a hit? What if it's meant to be a series and actually change the way we take in gaming? Well, what if I told you that a motion capture studio and the actor Andy Serkis and Hellblade and Devil May Cry creators Ninja Theory created an action adventure game that failed completely? Enslaved Odyssey of the West set out to pioneer games and motion capture technology that we use in gaming to this day. With the incredible performances of Andy Serkis, who plays Monkey, once again proving that he can only typecast himself as an ape or a monkey, and of course Lindsay Shaw, Ned's the Classified School Survival Guide. This game undersold massively, and if you ask me, I think it's down to the advertising, because this game had to top the likes of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Red Dead Redemption, and of course Call of Duty Black Ops, which practically means this game had no chance of succeeding because this year was filled with juggernauts. But if you was able to get your hands on this game, you realise that this game was made with nothing but passion and energy, with the intention to change the ways that performance captures are seen within gaming. But it didn't sell too well, which is why we didn't get around to seeing a full trilogy and the cliffhanger actually never being resolved. The motion capture and storytelling here is top tier, and it really is worth your time. I think people should give this game a chance, and fantastically, very much like Deadly Premonition or even games like Doritos Crash Course and Spec Ops The Line, these are all available to play on the Xbox One backwards compatibility, amazingly, showing that people are asking for these games to be played and experienced by people who may have missed out on them, or even hearing of it for the first time through videos like this. And looking at cult classics and cult games and playing games that you never actually know whether they're going to be successful or they're going to flop, or even if they have something to offer, even if they are seeming a little bit cheaper than most games. It's an incredible way to look into playing games and going forward. The fact that I'm able to just enjoy anything and hoping that there could be some good coming out of it, or there could be an experience that only I will be able to connect with, and even a small community of people, tells me why games become cult classics. I don't often listen to reviews or if anything saying that a game is crap or short, because it all depends depends on the player and the experience and what you like yourself. It's all very subjective and it's entirely your own opinion. You could enjoy the quirky and even the unusual with games like Deadly Premonition, or having a fun time with your friends and being able to connect and talk about memories with Doritos Crash Course, or even games that change the landscape and inspire millions like Enslaved Odyssey of the West, which went on to pioneer in how we do motion capture technology in gaming, which we see to this day. No matter how small or how many people think it sucks, or if it isn't a good game or isn't long enough, you got to remember nothing can compete with pure passion. If you find something that touches you and inspires you personally, then that should be all that matters. You will find this often with YouTubers who have quite a low sub count. They often come across as, oh, they haven't got a high sub count, so we just might as well move along. But often or not, people have great things to offer, and it's at these times when they're putting in nothing but pure energy and passion for their works. So it's definitely worth checking out people who are definitely smaller, but they may offer something that you've never seen before, even though their sub count doesn't tell you that they're getting hundreds and thousands of views a week. But the same message can be said to you if you're a creator and a YouTuber yourself. If you feel confident in something that you're making and you're trying to express your own opinion, or you feel like it's something that people are not going to take on board, remember there is always something for someone. No matter what you're making, as long as you have confidence and passion in it, into your artwork and in your own opinion, and most importantly if you have confidence in yourself, that's when you're able to connect with certain people who agree with you, and that's when you become possibly a cult classic, and then possibly something more.